All right, I'm going to get us started. Welcome, everybody, to Behind the Mic, an audiobook narrators panel hosted by Braille Institute Library. My name is Kate. I am the library's Senior Manager of Programming and Digital Learning. We have assembled an exciting group of professional audiobook narrators today to give you a behind-the-scenes peek into the world of audiobook narration. Joining us today, we have Jill Fox, January LaVoy, and Moira Quirk. And we're very excited to hear from them live today, as opposed to pre-recorded. Before we get started, though, we want to tell you just a little bit about who we are and what we do. Braille Institute is a nonprofit organization that's been supporting the blindness and low vision community for more than 100 years. We offer free programs and services for people of all ages and at every stage of vision loss. Our library is a key part of that work. We provide our patrons with free accessible reading materials and devices, such as audiobooks, Braille, and large print, to help ensure that anyone who has trouble reading standard print can continue to enjoy reading, learning, and personal growth. All of our services are 100% free, thanks to the support of many generous donors. If you or someone you know struggles to read standard print materials, or if you'd like to be a donor, please reach out. Our website is www.brailleinstitute.org. You can call us at 800-808-2555. One more time, that is 800-808-2555. Or you can email us at BILS, that stands for Braille Institute Library Services, at brailleinstitute.org. We'll also go ahead and paste our phone number and email address into the chat box for you now. And we'll also repeat those at the very end of the workshop as well for you. As a reminder, I want to let you all know that this workshop is being recorded, and the recording will be shared with all of our attendees and registrants, as well as our guests today, in probably about a week's time. And our audience members are welcome to post questions and comments to the authors or our narrators in the chat box, and we'll relay them to our guests. With that, let's get started with our chat. Welcome again to all of our narrators here. To get started, I'd love to let each of you take a moment to briefly introduce yourself and let our audience know how they might know you or your voice specifically. Jill, why don't we start with you?
My name is Jill Fox. I'm a longtime narrator at APH, American Printing House for the Blind. I always like to say a quick thing. You may also know the name Jack Fox, and who is also a narrator. I want to be clear that he is my father. He is not my husband.
Thank you, Jill. And January, why don't you go next?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm January LaVoy. I am an actor and an audiobook narrator based in Atlanta, Georgia. And I've done about, I don't know, maybe about 600 or so titles at this point. So lots of titles out there with my name on them as narrator. But I just have to say, because Jill said that, I am married to a narrator. His name is not Jack Fox. His name is Will Dameron. But we are a two narrator household. So it's all voiceover all the time here.
Thank you so much, January. And Moira, why don't you go now?
Hi, I am Los Angeles based and voiceover artist for many years, and you will have heard me in audiobooks, but also in a number of video games and animation, and plays for BBC Radio, and for LA Theatre Works as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Each of you took a different path professionally to audiobook narration. So my first question for you all is, I'd love to hear from each of you sort of about your journey. What brought you to narration?
I can say I've this is a profession I feel like that found me. My father, Jack Fox, is a long-time APH narrator. We moved to Louisville. APH is here in Louisville, Kentucky. We moved here when I was about 3, and I grew up just knowing what he did. We also came here because he's a radio broadcaster. Came here for that, started working at APH, and I just kind of grew up around it, never thought of it in terms of something that I would do. I auditioned once when I was maybe 17, which was ridiculously young, but he pushed me to do it, really just to give me something to do for the summer, just to try, have a goal. And I was rejected by NLS, as I should have been, but it kind of planted a seed in my mind. Went away to college, went to IU Bloomington, and I came back to Louisville just for the summer in my mind to just take a minute and figure out next step. And APH was holding auditions again. And this time I was a little more intentional with it. And I was accepted as an NLS narrator. So I cannot believe it will be 30 years in March that I've worked for APH. And I'm so proud of the work that we do there. I'm so grateful that I've had the opportunity.
Thank you so much. I know at our last check, we looked at how many books you've narrated that's in our catalog, and it was over 1,000. So I'm not sure if you even know how many titles you've done for NLS over the year.
I looked it up today, actually, in preparation, and they have it listed as 1,500. But I will say, I think some of those listings are duplicates, because back when we first started recording, it was on tape. It's on 1/4-inch tape, right? And so cassettes were sent out. And then I forget when we started doing digital conversions, but I mean, it was in early 2000s. And so some of those titles listed, I think, are both the tape recordings, the cassette recordings, and the digital recordings. But I think it's safe to say they're uniquely probably 1,000 titles.
Very impressive. Awesome. Before anyone else answers that question, I just want to briefly pause and welcome Mary Robinette Kowal. Welcome, Mary Robinette. We're glad you were able to join us.
Thank you. Sorry about that. We are having ridiculously high winds here in Denver, and I'm actually coming to you using my cell phone for hotspot because there was no other internet.
Oh, goodness.
Well, we appreciate you being MacGyver-like and figuring that out and making it work. Mary Robinette, we are everyone's going round robin and answering the same question, which is each of you took a different path to professional audiobook narration. So I'm just interested in hearing about each of your paths. So Jill was just telling us about her journey. So whoever else would like to go next.
Oh, I'll jump in. I was living in Orlando. I was working for Nickelodeon. I started off my career on camera, and Nickelodeon was basically my 90s. And then while I was there, Nicktoons opened up pretty much at the same time that I was deciding to move to Los Angeles. I had always been such a massive Hanna-Barbera fan that I was very sharp-elbowed about making my way into animation. So that was sort of where I went. And then I kind of realized as I was doing the pilot and you know the whole pilot season every year and doing my guest spots, that really the more interesting characters were in voiceover, where I wasn't limited by my stature, my size, my sex, my age, anything like that. I could play drunk witches and little boys, and I kind of went, and so then my world became animation and video games, which are both crazy worlds. And then I don't know if Nate told you this, I had sort of stepped in as sort of a service of volunteering at the Braille Institute in Los Angeles with no idea of making that a career. It was just a thing I did because I liked reading. And then it slowly dawned on me, oh, my degree is in English literature and drama. This seems a perfect marriage, that everything is informing. And then it sort of went to there. So I think my path to audiobooks was very desultory, and made no sense, and yet made all the sense. So everything has informed being here in a place that I really am rather happy.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and jump.
Perfect. Yeah,
Sorry. I'll go ahead and jump from there because my path is weirdly similar and also completely different.
Yes.
I started in puppet theater. And so, and when you were saying how you could be anything, that's one of the things that attracted me to puppet theater. I was not limited to being a 5'7" white female of a certain age. I could be badgers, I could be witches, I could be little boys, I could be anything. Aging tenors are one of my favorite things to play. But then also when I was in college, I was on the forensics team. I started on the debate side. So forensics is speech, debate, and interpretive reading. It is not dead bodies in this particular context, but interpretive reading is basically competitive audiobook narration. And they didn't tell us that audiobook narration was a job, but that was, I learned all of the skills for it and then applied those to puppetry for like 20 years and would teach people how to do readings as an author. And then suddenly was like, wait a minute, maybe I should be doing narration since I know how to write and I know how to read and I know how to do character voices. And like you, all of these random different skills came together. And I auditioned and started doing audiobook narration.
I love that. And January, we'd love to hear your journey.
Well, I got into audiobooks for the money. And that's true. And I don't mean that as if to say we're all out here making billions of dollars, but I was a theater actor in New York for many years, and it's impossible really to support oneself in a city such as New York only doing off-Broadway theater. And I had been, waiting tables and doing all the things that one does. And, things had started to accumulate, and I had been cast in a soap opera, which was great, but also temporary. You never know. And it was around that time, and I had been doing commercial voiceover for a couple of years. And my agent called and was like, do you want to audition for a book on tape? And I was like, does it pay actual money? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, sign me up. Because I love books. And I had never listened to an audiobook before that, but was confident in my ability to read one out loud, and booked the first one I auditioned for, and felt, I would say, in the studio sitting there the first time, like felt something click into place in my life. Like, oh, if they would let me do this all the time, I would do this all the time. And as my agent, who is still my agent to this day, Sherry Hoffman, likes to say, she loves her job because getting people these audiobook jobs helps them pay for their theater habit. It continues as such. But yeah, it was something that I never knew was going to be something that I was going to love so much and would become the biggest part of my career.
Thank you all so much for sharing. It's so interesting to hear your different journeys, but that through line of discovering it and loving it. And I love that idea of it's a more freeing performance because you can be truly any character, anyone you want to be. I'd love to ask you a little bit about your preparation. As listeners, we get to hear your finished, beautiful performance, but we don't really know what happens behind the scenes beforehand. I'd love to hear about your preparation before you ever actually get into the recording booth. How much time do you get to spend with the book, preparing? What does that process look like for you all? Whoever, don't be shy.
Oh, okay.
I'll say that my preparation has changed over the course of my career, and it also depends on the project. So when I started off, it was still when we were using paper, and I would diligently highlight every single line in a different color. I had so many highlighter colors. And as I got more comfortable and familiar, I stopped doing the highlighting. And I have some books like I record Shannon McGuire's series, and we're 19 books into this series at this point. That's not an exaggeration. So those books, I just email Shannon and I go, is there anything I need to know about these characters? Like, is anybody gonna, because she'll have things where she sets something up in like book 6 that she pays off in book 12. And I'm like, anything I need to know? Like, is this character gonna come back? And other than that, I can go into the booth and read those cold if I need to, because I know the characters so well. If it's an author that I'm familiar with, I will often only read the first third of the book and then kind of skim the rest of it, just looking for unfamiliar words, new characters that pop up, making sure I know the total overall trajectory. But I often don't have time to read the entire book as much as I would like to. Like, that would be my preferred way. What I'd like is to read the entire book and then interview the author. That's not feasible.
Excellent. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think it really depends that on the amount of time that you're given, because often you're given like a crash title, I think it's called, and you say, well, when do you need this? And they'll say 2 weeks ago, and that is an entirely different form of preparation. I would basically say, for me, I read the book, sometimes very, very diligently, and sometimes it if I've got the idea of it, then it's maybe less focused, but still focused, but to a lesser degree, so I can get through it. And I'm basically just, every genre, whatever it is, you're just looking for the characters. Are they consistent? The tone of it, the arc of the character. Does someone suddenly say in the very last chapter, aha, that was a fake French accent all this time, and actually I'm from Washington State? And then so read the book. And I don't know if you've had experiences generally with men where they haven't read the book and they go in, if you're doing it, and they read the book first and just say, I did this, 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 and this, and you just go, what? Why? You've created mayhem in my life now. Because there hasn't been a discourse that I would have appreciated. But and I too, like, as blank of a page, I like to go into the booth with my page clean. I may mark if there's an M dash that's sort of complicated how I have to approach it, or if I know it'll make my recording faster if I know I must emphasize this word. Just those, but otherwise, yeah, please just give me a white page with black writing and nothing else.
This is so interesting because you are all from the commercial side, correct?
Yes,
and
all the big bucks, like January said.
I know. So I'm an APH or an NLS narrator at APH, and I don't know how often you all get projects, if you do one right after another, but I do. And so I work Monday through Thursday. I can go into it later, but I'm getting projects. I can be in the middle of one and let my studio director know, like, hey, we're getting to the end of this book. If there's a new one for me, I kind of need it now. I'm working with, I still call them a monitor. They're now called audiobook narrators or editors. And their job is to follow along in the book with me as I read, to make sure that I'm reading every word that's on the page. They do the research on pronunciation, and they make sure that I am consistent in my pronunciations and that they have a documented source for pronunciation. So that it takes prep on their end, and then I'm given the book. I mean, ideally, I would get it maybe, let's say, a week before I need to start. It doesn't always happen because the project I'm working on can end. We can get through it faster than expected. So I was just handed a book that I may start in 2 days. I just handed it today. And it was unusual because it's actually a paper book. We typically don't use those anymore, but I have it now. So in this case, I will have time. I rarely have time to read the entire book before I start, but I will try to do a third, or if I have a sense of how far I can get in 2 hours, I'll skim it just so I know. I mean, if you go in cold, and it has happened to me that I've gotten to near the end of a book, and it's absolutely, he said in his English accent, right? And luckily this person was a side character, but I had not been doing that for the whole book. And we had to go back and set in those scenes. I mean, and luckily he was somewhat minor, but that got me.
Yeah, I had that happen with a strong Yorkshire accent.
Oh.
For a character whose name was Raj Krishnasamy on the International Space Station. So that was...
Yeah. Even better than that is when they had a cross between a strong Yorkshire accent and a South Munchen accent, and you're just like, doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Shut the front door. We're going to do my idea, which is not that.
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes I just have to be in bossy boots because that makes no sense. There.
In terms of preparation, I am a control freak monster who has to read every single word of every single book I'm going to narrate before I narrate it. And that is not easy on my brain or my schedule because I'm always prepping a book while narrating a different book, or maybe prepping another book or doing research on another book, because we don't always get the benefit, Jill, of having someone do the research for us on the commercial side. It is completely random. Some publishers do, some publishers don't. Some publishers pay you to do it, some publishers don't. Some publishers give you a director to listen. Sometimes you're on your own. So there's a whole very chaotic suite of possibilities when you take a job. And of course, a thing that I always find an interesting question that folks who aren't in the business ask is like, oh, do you get to read a book before you say yes or no to the job? Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Logically, but if you think about the time that it would take to do that and then say no to a book, it's completely impractical. So no, we're accepting jobs based on a blurb. We're accepting jobs based on what you would read on Amazon or Goodreads about a book.
Yeah.
So as far as like, I try to like quickly take in a nonfiction book once I sort of understand the way the writer writes. And those are the only times that I will maybe get away with not reading it. But I have got to rest my eyes on all the words in a book before reading it. Not an efficient way to have a career as a narrator, but it's just what I need. And so, yeah, again, you can have 2 weeks, you can have a month, and sometimes you get 4 months, which is very strange. And then it's sort of like, I don't read it that far ahead because I mean,
no, that's the worst, is when you just go and you've read 3 books in between and you just go, oh, I can't remember any of I write my notes, but still
it's not as live.
Like, oh, this is a surprise, and I read it. Yeah.
But I think the goal for me, whatever the prep is, because as a couple of other folks have said, it depends on the project. But for me, the goal is to be able to prepare myself, and I'm a blank page person too, as little marking as possible on the page, because reading a book quietly to yourself is a completely different experience than reading a book out loud. And the translation that we are doing, which I do think of audiobook work as translation, is we're translating from one type of medium to a completely different medium, even though we have to be word perfect. It's about the experience that the person is going to have as they listen to it, right? And so it doesn't matter if I'm reading a book and I get some great idea about what this character is. When I'm performing it, I have to be available and free enough to the experience of what I've learned as it's passing through my body and out my mouth, if that sounds, if that makes sense, so that I can make a pivot or a swivel or allow for the act of creation to spontaneously happen as I'm reading the book out loud, if that makes sense.
How many times have you started and just gotten like 2 lines in and just went, oh, this, I've got to change this right here and now. This is not at all what I wanted it to be. Yeah. Yep. And then
or you make a discovery as you're it's like, oh, I'm trying to fit this, you know, square peg into a round hole because I have this idea, and actually as I'm embodying it, I'm realizing it's something different. That absolutely happens. Yeah 100%.
Thank you all. That's so interesting to hear. There's such variety in your preparation. And I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that, January, and for all of you, sort of, as you're saying, I love the idea of a translation, because I think that audiobook narration is absolutely a translation of the piece. So when you are sort of bringing that story to life, what are some of the things you're thinking as a performer that it's going to help bring the story to life for the listener?
I would just say quickly that how I put it is that audiobooks are a visual medium, which is a very strange way of thinking about it, and I'd be so interested, especially in this space, to hear feedback on that. But for me, audiobooks are a visual medium.
They are movies for your ear.
Yes, I am translating an image, right? A mental image. You're not seeing it visually, but that's my goal. And so that is kind of, I'm making sure that in my mind, as I'm reading, the image is cohesive, right? If I feel a skip, or I feel like I went from camera 1 to camera 2 and it's a weird edit, then I go, oh no, that's not what I meant. That's not quite right. So that's kind of how I'm. If there's sort of an overarching ethos to the thing that I'm doing or thinking about or minding, it's that.
It's interesting because I think I agree with you, and I think I wind up going slightly different direction, in that there is visual information that is encoded on the page that I have to get across to the reader through only sound. And I'm thinking specifically of transitions, because on the page you have a blank line or a hashtag or something like that, and then the characters, the scene begins again. But in audiobooks, I have to do that all with my voice.
Yes.
Except very occasionally where you have like a super fancy audiobook with like lots of bells and whistles on it. But those things, like I had to do one audiobook where the character was speaking to her doppelganger who sounded exactly like her, and there were no dialogue tags. It was just back-to-back dialogue. And so visually on the page, that's very, very clear. You can see that we are switching from one character to another. And so I had to do that all with the character's attitude and the energy levels that they were bringing while still making it. So that's the kind of thing that I think about when I'm getting into the performance of it.
Yeah.
Also homophones.
Yes, because it's not just the sound. You're not just restrained by it being only your voice. You're restrained by for audiobooks in particular, where I don't know how many times you've had to record with a pillow in front of your tongue because you're gurgling, etc., and just being human. But we are restrained by having to be completely still and silent in every other part of our body. And I sort of had come into this, the person who introduced me to audiobooks was Martin Jarvis, who directs many plays for radio for the BBC, which is still all audio, but it's blocked around this one microphone, and you learn proximity to the microphone and proximity to your other actor, and that, you know, one step is 30 feet if you don't do it right with the microphone. And so you're bringing all of that and your camera angles, etc., as you are completely still. But it is all happening. If you're doing it right, that movement and that blocking and that camera angle and the light, it's all there. You've got to imbue your story with that, all of it. Yeah.
This is so interesting to me because as an NLS narrator, we are we have been directed to not act, but narrate. So you find the line between acting and narrating, which is completely subjective, right? But you have to sort of keep it here. You can't, it feels I'm much more constrained. Hearing you all talk about your process, I feel like I wish I could do. I wish I were free to do what you can do. But I mean, I guess I do kind of push it, but, and I haven't, so our process when we record our files, an in-house proofreader proofreads to make sure we've said everything correctly, we've been consistent, and then it's sent to NLS where it's proofread again. And then it'll be sent back if we have corrections we have to do. They have not done this in a while, but they'll reject books for any number of reasons. I haven't gotten many rejected, certainly not in a while, but we've gotten correct rejections on improper accents or people mispronunciations. I just feel, yeah, we're constrained in a way. I think it would be
it's
liberating to be able to do what
it's
you
a
do.
different compact. I think then with NLS, the compact is, this is a book that is being read to you, and that's the understanding. I think then I'm sort of learning then in the commercial field, even within a book, I mean, you can decide this is a book that's being read to you, this is a book that is a performance, this is a book that's an audio drama. And even within the book, I always sort of say, when I'm narrating, at this moment, at this line, is the story happening or is the story being told at this point? And pivot from there. Whereas, and for you, as long as it's understood, I think it's very fair. This is a book that's being read.
I remember when I was starting out being told that there were like a spectrum of two basic styles with range in between. That some publishing houses wanted a neutral read, and some wanted an emotionally invested read. And I think that's more of the difference that we're talking about, that we happen to have 3 narrators who do emotionally invested reads and 1 narrator who does neutral reads.
Or like more neutral. It's like you find
not exactly, yeah. It's still because you can't do a completely neutral read, because then you are actually lying to the audience. Like, how dare you say that? Like that, that's a lie. That's a lie. So, but it is, there is, I think, a continuum, and as Moira was saying, that there are times when you'll use a fairly neutral read within a single book that is, the rest of it is emotionally narrated or emotionally invested.
I would also say that there's one of the cool things about audiobooks is how diverse, and lots of us have talked about how freeing it is to be able to play so many characters, to be able to not be constrained by our existence. But like, there are very, very beloved, famous narrators who do no character voices whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Still doing very emotionally invested, you know what I mean? And then there are some who do big, over the top, cartoonish, stuff that is beloved, and so that to me is a mark of the diversity of the material. Books want what they want,
Yes.
right? And so we as narrators have to meet the book with our skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for those of us who come especially from theater backgrounds, you know, if you were a stage actor for a long time, television backgrounds, there's a tuning, right, that happens where we go, I'm in a 50-seat house, I'm in a 1,000-seat house, right? So I think to your point, Jill, like it's never neutral, but the constraint can come from the book, it can come from the publisher, it can come from the organization that is commissioning the performer, and so kind of all these interesting shades exist, and there's a lot of trust, I feel like, and a lot of, you have to be confident to be an audiobook narrator. Like when I coach people, the number one thing that I find I say to people is, I don't believe that you believe you should be reading this book. That's number one. I don't care about how good your Belfast accent is. I have to believe that you should be narrating this book and that it should be recorded for other people to hear. That's step one, right? And once we get past that, I think that that possibility of diversity of all different types of reads really opens up.
Thank you so much, all of you. That's I love that idea. I would also offer that I think if there's a customer for both versions. I know just in talking with folks, some people do prefer a more sort of slightly neutral read and some like a more performative read. And I also want to let you know, Jill, we got a comment in the chat that someone said they feel like you very much act in your performances and that's what they enjoy about you as an audiobook narrator.
Yes. I'm sure there is a range of neutral.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I also feels a little bit sort of like you were saying, January, with the audiobook narration is translating. So they're sort of translating it into two different things, a more neutral version and a more performative based one. Just another way of interpreting and playing with the text itself.
Yeah, and I think the books speak to me. I think most of us have an experience of that a book tells you how it wants to be, right? Some writers are very forward. Some writers put themselves in their books, you know, and when they do that, you have to take on that mantle, even though you've never met them or don't know them, or, you know, you have to take what they're giving you. And some are very, 30,000 feet and detached. And so it's part of what I love about doing this is it's very alive. It's very immediate every time.
Let's talk a little bit about your developing character voices. January, we had a comment from one of our librarians in Santa Barbara, and she said she particularly loves your narration for the diviners because you had so many unique characters. And so I'd love to hear from you all sort of what's your process when you are developing those distinct character voices?
I'm happy to just say really quickly, Diviners is my favorite. I love Libba Bray, the author. I love those books. And I often say that The Diviners is the book that taught me who I was as a narrator, because no book had ever asked more of me. There's about 150 characters. It's a 650-page book. It takes place in New York City in the 1920s. And it is phenomenal. I didn't know I could do all those voices, but she wrote the book in such a way that I heard them all. So I would just say, in the interest of honoring the author's work, I let it speak to me. And then if I need to perfect something, a regional accent, a type of, super gravelly voice, not to hurt myself while doing that for 600 pages, then I go off and tool around with it and work on it. But ultimately, I'm doing what is asked of me. And I also like to tell people, be careful, because if you've ever met me, you've probably been in an audiobook somewhere, because I steal voices from the world around me. I think most of us do.
Yeah. I think
Anyone?
mostly it's just incredibly intuitive. I kind of feel like characters present themselves to you, and you just honor what's there on the page, and then sometimes some characters are just sort of spackle. I mean, just depending on how the authors presented them. Yeah, and then I think we all have our bag of tricks and our sort of roving repertory theatre that's in our heads that we rely on. But mostly the book will tell you who the character is, and you just say it. In fact, you should just be able to neutrally. I think a book should work with you just doing the he said, she said, without a character voice, as long as it has the truth and of the characters just saying what they mean or what they don't mean. So he said, she said should work, and anything beyond that is kind of cake.
Yeah, I agree with that. The thing that I tell people when I'm training, and just for context, because I am also a writer, I am often trying to teach authors how to read their work out loud at an event without murdering their text. And the thing that most people forget is that they sit down and they want to focus on pronouncing the words correctly, and they forget that they're telling a story. And we know how to do this. Humans are natural storytellers. You know when you're talking about something that happened to you in your day that you'll vary your pacing, you'll do funny voices for whoever you're talking about. So we know how to do this naturally. So that's the key thing. And also in the bag of tricks, if I've got a character where I'm like, oh my God, these look, it's 3 guys who all went to the same college and they all have the same hobbies, and like, oh my God. So how do I distinguish these bros who are all really basically the same bro? And there I do have a bag of tricks that I will sometimes, I'm like, okay, we're going to have to do this mechanically. Pitch, placement, pacing, accent, and attitude. And this comes way back from when I was in college and actually doing that competitive thing. But pitch is, how high or low, and you can't rely on any of these by itself. But you can do a lot with just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a huge variation. Placement is where you are, where it sits in your voice, like American English is in the middle of your palate, and British English is all the way at the front. And things like that. Pacing. Do you speak quickly? Do you speak slowly? Is it languid? Is it staccato? Accent. My favorite thing with accent is like getting really particular. So if I have 3 Southern characters, they're not all from the same part of the South sometimes. And then attitude. And attitude is the one that I think is the most important. Like how the character feels.
Yeah. As you're a writer, I will just point out my favorite part. If you've read Stephen King's book on writing, which is a lovely, beautiful, generous book. And I think towards the last chapter, he said, I'm going to go in and I'm going to rewrite. I'm renaming this character because I've realized I'm doing the audiobook and I don't want to say the name, blip, 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 which was very difficult and tricky. I don't want to say that 3,000 times. So he has the benefit of going in and changing his work. And I loved that for him.
Yeah. I am extraordinarily fortunate that when I am narrating my own work, I get to narrate on the first pass pages, which is the first time it's been typeset. Normally, for our listening audience, normally what we're narrating from is the book that's ready to go to print or the book that is already printed. And so you can't make any changes. I can change things with my own books. And when I write, I know that my book is going to go into audio. Even with my short fiction, it's not always going to be me that's narrating it, but I know that that's going to happen. So I read everything that I've written out loud, and it will change it that thing we were talking about earlier about that moment when you're inhabiting the story, when you're speaking it out loud. Sometimes I'm reading it and I'm like, this is fine on the page, and it's garbage when it's read out loud, and we'll make changes that way.
Interesting. Yeah, and I will write it down, your pacing pitch thing, just to remind myself. I got through a book with 12 Scottish policemen from the very same village, all the same age, and I thought I might do myself harm.
I think all female narrators fear the precinct more than anything else.
Yes.
We arrive at the precinct and we're like, well,
here we go. All right. Yeah. I have what I call red shirt voices, which are, this character is going to be here for this scene. I don't have to be able to sustain this voice. It doesn't have a lot of emotional range, but by God, it's distinct, and this character is going to die in the next scene.
And for not marking pages, when a character dies, I do write very big, dead here. Proceed as you will. Yes. Freedom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Except
some people I've taken great joy in their demise.
Yes. We were talking about gravelly voices earlier. I recorded this 19 book series. They had me record it out
and
of
ongoing.
Sequence. Ongoing, yes. Yes, actually, I should be getting the 20th book shortly. But they had me record it out of sequence. And so I recorded book 2 before I recorded book 1. And in book 2, the sea witch appears, and the description of her voice is like gravel rolling, like the ocean rolling gravel across the shore. And she's there in just this one moment in this one scene, and she's just supposed to be terrifying. So I gave her this voice.
Yeah.
This woman monologues, which if I had recorded it in sequence, I would have known. And also in every other instance, she appears as a teenage girl. But I'm locked in to this voice.
No.
Yeah, so I'll hit it hard and then ease off when she gets into
Yeah.
monologue, but oh my goodness. Oh, choices one makes.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk a little bit more about that. You've mentioned some stuff you're like, oh, I don't want to do that character voice. And at the start, a few of you mentioned sort of the types of characters you like to play the most. So I'm curious, what are your favorite characters to portray? And is there, this is combining the question from Rebecca in the chat and also Nate in the chat. What characters do you like to play? And is there a character in particular, one voice that you're like, I wish I could do that again. I hope there's another book that comes out and you just love to do that character.
No.
Or just a character type in general you enjoy.
I like sneaky people. I like sneaky people and liars and
yeah, generally it's the baddies that you have the most fun with. You know, you can, I would say you can go a little cartoonish sometimes with them, and the book is forgiving of that, and so you can kind of have
just how mustache twirly is this character? I like them to have a really lovely, luxuriant mustache.
Yeah.
But there is something rather joyful about, times are hard now, when you just get just a delightful, earnest person, who's probably has bluebirds land on their hand and squirrels running around. I kind of find a great joy in that too.
Yeah. I enjoy. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
You go, Jill. No, I've talked a lot. You go.
I go through periods of getting young adult fiction, and sometimes that is the most fun because I find there's such a range of character type, and there's just so much emotionally going on. So I don't know. I have fun. I have fun with young adult set.
Because I I started in puppetry, most of my early voices were all small fuzzy animals, and I don't usually get to do those anymore. And so really enjoy when I get to be a small creature. But the character type that turns up more often that I really enjoy is that I call it the Dowager Countess. Like, and I'm just like, I'm just going to embody Maggie Smith right now.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say like the category that I enjoy the most is when I can pick a perfect celebrity actor to cast in the role in the audiobook, and then I get to do them. I love that. One of the books that I got to do once was a Star Wars book called Phasma. And Phasma was a character that had been in a movie, but that had like 5 words at that point. And it was played by Gwendolyn Christie, who from Game of Thrones. And I had been watching Game of Thrones, and I loved her voice, and I had her voice so perfectly in my head. So I got to do this whole book with this protagonist that I felt I could just completely channel. It was so much fun. So more Gwendolyn Christie for me.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to channel Gwendolyn Christie anyway, right?
Yeah. And surely we've all done Maggie Smith, haven't we?
Oh, I mean, yes.
100%.
Come on.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a no-brainer.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. But the gift is that no one knows that the listener doesn't know that's what you're trying to do. So you don't have to hold yourself to.
I'm not an impressionist.
Exactly.
It's just my interpretation, my taking of that. Yeah.
It's so great.
Yeah. Yes, little canny Scots, and I love that.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you, January, a thought question about the Star Wars novels, because I know you've narrated a few of them. What is that like to step into a world where it's a very known IP, people are very familiar with those characters? What was that like?
Absolutely terrifying. Like, absolutely paralyzingly terrifying. The first one I did that I had, the very first one that I did was actually a book that took place 35,000 years before the first Star Wars movie. So I kind of got a little grace there. I was like, there's no repeat characters. Okay. So I sort of got to step into the universe without those strictures. It was like a prehistory of the Jedi and how they came to be. Then it was like the next book was like, you're Princess Leia. And I was like, great. Nobody has strong feelings about that character. And it was like Leia and Solo, and and so you have to make a deal with yourself that you're going to be kind to yourself, and that you're going to do a very respectful version of a nod to a thing. I do not sound like Harrison Ford. I do not sound like Mark Hamill. I don't even really sound like Carrie Fisher. But that is where, and this has come up previously in the conversation, the most important thing was watching the movies for the attitude, because what the fans will not forgive is you having the wrong attitude for the character. They'll forgive the voice. They will not forgive the attitude. So you have to understand like what that character's archetype brings to the mythology. So it's a little extra layer of work, but I deeply, deeply enjoy. I've gotten to do that. I've gotten to do Star Trek stuff. I've gotten to do, these huge franchises that mean so much to people. And I get, some of the most loving feedback also from that stuff. So it's really nice to experience that.
That's it. We're just getting towards the end. So before we wrap up, I wanted to, let's see, where did that question go? Wendy in the chat, she had a question about sort of those interested in this career. What would you recommend? How is it that, what people should do if they're interested in being an audiobook narrator?
I have one piece of advice that I want to give first, which is going back to the thing January was saying before about us not getting to read the books ahead of time, before we accept a role. If you think you want to do this, the first thing you should do is get a book in a genre you don't read and don't get a good example of it, and read it out loud, and spend do 2 hours, take a break, 2 hours, take a lunch break, 2 hours, take a break, 2 hours. And if at the end of the day you think in your closet, and don't move. And if at the end of the day you think in summer, yes, you probably are naked because you also have to turn the air conditioning off. But if at the end of the day you think, I made that sound good, that was fun, this is a job for you, and you should pursue it. If you're like, this is torture, back away slowly. Now, other people probably have more concrete advice, but that would be my first thing. Make sure you actually want the job. Make sure you want the actual job.
Yeah.
I would say that also a big part of the actual job is getting the job over and over and over again. And so the smallest part, I think, maybe mentally of what we do is, what most of us do on the commercial side at least, is reading books. The getting of the job and the organizing of your life and your calendar and your studio time and your rest time and all of that stuff is a huge part of what we all do. I haven't been to a concert in a decade. I don't go into loud spaces. I don't go out to dinner the night before I'm going to be narrating because the noise floor in a restaurant is much higher than the noise floor not in a restaurant. There's a lot about the lifestyle of being a professional voice actor that is limiting. I feel it's worth it, the trade-off, but it's taking care. I once met a hand model who had to wear gloves all the time, and I was like, oh, I couldn't do that. Like, as much as I'd like to get paid to have people take pictures of my hands, I couldn't do that, So it's thinking really about the whole thing as a whole, because once it becomes your job, it is no longer your hobby. I also maybe get to read for pleasure 1 or 2 or 3 books a year now, if I'm lucky. Now,
Worst aspect of the job is how it limits your My husband comes in and he makes it sound so disgraceful, but he goes, "Are you reading a book for pleasure?"
Yeah. I also have to read books to blurb them as well. So
oh gosh, you have no free time. Yeah,
I rarely get to. In fact, when I consume books for pleasure, I am listening to audiobooks. So
me too.
Yeah. Yeah, Jill, how about getting into your area?
It's so different now than when I started. And I don't know how many studios contract with NLS anymore. They're just a handful, and you need to be there, right? You need to live where the studio is. It's not something that you record and you send in, because there are all sorts of rules about what needs to be happening during the production. So when I started, I walked into the studio and I sat down around a table. The audition was everyone that was auditioning that day, and there were maybe 4 of us, sat and had a piece that was prepared, and we read it for the studio director. And in that moment, they said, "Okay, you come back. We'll record a piece and we'll send it up to NLS and have them approve or reject it." They don't do that anymore. Now I don't even really know. I'm sure the process is just recording and sending in digital files, and you're approved by the studio director to then record a more finished piece and send it on to NLS. So I think everything that you all have said about bringing just the production experience, just getting through a book, it's very different. I am going in just 2 hours a day. There are 3 sessions that the studio schedules: morning, mid-morning, after lunch. They're 2 hours and 5 minutes. We have 11 part-time narrators, and we come in on different days or at different times. My schedule's pretty consistent. I go in at 10:20. I leave at 12:25, Monday through Thursday. Sometimes I'm scheduled for back-to-back sessions, but it's before and after lunch, so I've got 30 minutes to take a break. I haven't read a book for pleasure, and I don't know how long, because so much of my time is devoted to that. I feel like I do think that you do have to think about what you want your life to be and how much you want to devote. The way that we do it, you couldn't make a living doing it. I have other things that I have going on. So it's not enough just to think that you would enjoy reading books. It's not enough. You do have to have an understanding of what the job really is.
Yeah.
I don't get to pick the books I read. We get shipments of books sent to us from NLS. And then within that, the studio director knows her narrators. She knows what books will fit with what style. She knows our availability. She knows when the books are due out and kind of assigns accordingly. I've read tons of stuff that I would never choose to read.
Yeah.
Very rarely do we get, it's not like we're getting high literature. I've read and said things and committed them to tape and to digital files that I would never say out loud. I would never choose to say out loud.
Only for money.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you, it was like, do we want to share lines that does anyone else keep lines that they've had to read out loud that are like, I can't believe this is
I love
you're
this
getting paid
idea,
to do this?
Narrator Robinette. We're just about at time, so I don't want to keep everyone longer,
Yeah.
but maybe we can do I love that question. Maybe just a quick round robin and everyone say, if you have one, your favorite line that you've had.
so
I have a brain like a sieve, so I'm going to sit this one out. It is read and forgotten. I'm sorry. It kind
No,
of.
that's okay.
No.
Yeah.
I know that there are several that I can't believe I ever said, but they're not fit things to say in
Well,
public.
there's that.
I mean,
there is that aspect.
the sheer number of times in my life that I have been paid to say the word nipple would just, I mean, just that, and that's clean.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
biological, anatomical.
That's above the
So
waist.
I'll leave you with that.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're probably right. That's probably safer. Can I do one quick thing on advice for becoming a narrator?
Yes.
Which is one of the things that I did when I was early in my career was that I reached out to a favorite author. And I reached out to a couple of favorite authors who had short fiction published that was not available in audio. And I said, I'm working on becoming an audiobook narrator. May I narrate your story and release it to build my portfolio so that I could say I have narrated for authors such as. I don't know if that's actually still a useful thing. Most websites have most publishers have a submission guideline where you go and you find out about the audition process. But that was something that I did. And if you go to earlier career writers, people who are also trying to build their body of work, it can also be a nice gift to that writer who may not have audio of their own work.
Great idea. Awesome. Well, I'm so sorry to have to wrap us up because I feel like we could keep talking for another hour. This has been so wonderful, everyone. Thank you, everyone, once again for joining us. And thanks especially to our special guests for sharing their time, thoughts, and talents with us. If you enjoyed today's event, consider joining us next Monday, February 23rd, for a special Black History Month Author Talk event with Dr. Deirdre Heckman. Dr. Heckman, who is a patron of our library herself, will join us to discuss her memoir, The World Where I Belong, My Quest for Identity as a Black Woman in White Skin. Again, that will be Monday the 23rd from 10 a.m. to 11. And you can go ahead and give us a call or email us if you'd like help registering with that. As a reminder, this virtual panel was hosted by Braille Institute Library. If you or someone you know would like our services, please reach out. Everything we provide is 100% free thanks to contributions of many donors. To find out how you can become a patron, to volunteer your time, or to donate, visit our website, www.brailleinstitute.org, or call 800-808-2555, or email us at BILS@brailleinstitute.org. And we'll copy and paste that phone number and email address into the chat box one more time for you all. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again today, and we'll see you all hopefully next Monday.